everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having an unbelievable start to your week. Remember what I always say, whether you're on point, whether you're exactly where you want to be, whether you're a few steps behind, or whether you're catching hell, if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight. That's where your focus needs to be, on the fact that you are still in the fight. The fight isn't over until you quit or until you win. Always remember that. It's not over until you win or until you quit. You decide what you're going to do. To me, it's never an option to quit. Before we get going, I want to point you to the description box. I'm going to talk about some things that are extremely important. This is more informative than it is motivational, but you know me, I'm going to drop some gems on you that's going to lift you. But I also want to inform you, because a lot of the times what we're not able to achieve isn't simply a lack of effort, a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge and know-how. It is because there are some things that are rooted deeper inside that we need to uproot in our lives, that can be traced many times all the way back to childhood. And so I want to talk to you about that. But I want to also encourage you that no matter how bad it is, you can still win. And that's what I want you to understand. It's about winning in life. It's about coming back. Ain't nothing like a good comeback story. I'm telling you, I've lived a few comebacks in my life, and I'm telling you, those are the things that I'm able to sit down with my clients and share with them and give them hope. But if you look in the description box, I am offering a couple of things. There are two courses that are the emotional healing from the emotional trauma. One of them is self-paced, meaning that you order it and you go at your own pace by yourself. And then there's the supported course, which means you actually go through the course step by step with yours truly. And I add guidance. I recommend working with me, but that may not be in your budget. But definitely, after you hear this, I want to give you an opportunity to work on that. Now, here's the beauty of it. If you purchase any one of those courses, regardless to which one, whether it's the supported or the self-paced, you're going to be gifted an additional course to give to someone, or to play it forward to someone you love, because there's a lot. You're going to find out just how significant the issue is. Now, one of the things that happens, whether I'm working from a therapeutic, intervention type situation, where I'm actually working with someone who's dealing with psychological issues, or dealing with depression, or dealing with something like that, or I'm working on the other end of what I do, which is helping people who are relatively healthy mentally and emotionally, still reach another level in life. They're on point. They're striving for something. They're going for something, but they know there's something more out there. So they're going that. So whether, and you can call it life strategist, life coach, whatever you want to call it, whether I'm doing that or whether I'm actually working in a situation where I'm dealing with someone and helping them with their mental health, there is always a point. Well, I won't say always, but a lot of the times there's a point, especially with Black people, where I'm sitting down and I'm working with them, and and I get this even when they come to me, and they're not coming to me because they're dealing with depression. They're not coming to me because they feel there's something else going on with their mental health. They're coming to me because, look, hey, this is what I've been trying to do. I've been striving to do this. I've been trying to do this. I can't get over this hump. I've been trying to start this business. I've been trying to get it over this. I've been trying to get my financial situation, and then we get to going and we get to trying to figure out, okay, what the inhibiting factors are, what's holding them back. And what I often come to is that there are some things that are holding them back that go back to their childhood. See, what happens is your experiences as a child, especially up to age 5 to 7, are setting the literal parameters of how you're going to engage life, how you're going to approach life, how you see yourself in life. If you are a child that dealt with childhood trauma, depending on what that trauma is, that trauma framed your belief system about the world, about yourself in the world, and about what you can expect. It determined whether or not you were going to be trusting with people, or you were going to have something. It determined whether you would have a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment. It dealt with, there's so many different ways that you could experience trauma. If you had a parents that divorce, you're going to have abandonment issues, you're going to have rejection issues, you're going to have some things that are going to follow you. It's also going to shape how you view people, how much trust you're willing to give to people. But more importantly, there's a thing there's this thing that's called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. These are forms of trauma experienced as a child. Each one is categorized as a point. So you have ACEs. ACEs can be any form of abuse, emotional, sexual, psychological. It could be physical abuse. It can be neglect. Then you've got having a parent who is uh, addicted to a substance, an alcoholic or a drug addiction, having a parent who is verbally abusive to your mom, seeing one of your parents being abused, having a parent become incarcerated, and there are some others. Okay, each one of those represent a point. When you get to 4, it literally not only impacts you as a child, it impacts you in your lifespan, throughout your lifespan, through the whole course of your adulthood. It stays with you, not just emotionally, not just in the fact that you're probably not going to develop completely in a pro-social manner. You may learn to maneuver and navigate, but you don't learn to be completely pro-social. You have trust issues. You don't sustain relationships over a long period of time. Even in relationships, those relationships are highly dysfunctional because what it requires of you, you aren't able to give, and it closes down on you. I can go on and on about the different things that happen from a behavioral perspective because you're not completely and properly socialized. But on the other side, there are situations where, that are natural physiological health implications. Okay, here's a big one. A child with at least 4 ACEs, meaning that they experience at least 4 of those: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, abusive parent, seeing a parent abused, seeing a parent taken away, divorce, neglect, all, and there are 10 majors, but those are some of them. Okay, so say 4 of those things happen. That's 4 ACEs. A child with 4 ACEs is 12 times more likely to attempt suicide at some point in their life. Not just while they're going through it, but at any point of their life. It doesn't just leave because they grow older. You don't grow out of trauma. That's one of the things we got to get. You don't grow out of trauma. You don't outdate trauma. In other words, a lot of people think, well, if it's been 10 years, and that's what kills me. Even when people make the argument about slavery, well, it's been 150 years, but at what point were we ever treated? At what point did we ever receive an intervention and we heal from the trauma? Not to mention the fact that there's still what's called re-injury, still being injured. But we're talking about just the original thing. So the thing is, until you deal with something, it's there. This thing doesn't go away. It doesn't heal on its own. It requires you to properly engage it, properly process it, properly integrate it. One of the problems with trauma is trauma disrupts your natural linear timeline. What does that mean? What that means is, when something happens in your life, traditionally, conventionally, and normally in life, you process it. Okay, while it's happening, it's in the present. It's real now. After it happens, it's in the past. It's a memory. So anytime you recall it as a memory. Why is this important? Because a memory is something that's over. It no longer has an impact on you except for the power you give to it. So when you learn how to process something and you created a memory, you can learn from it, but can no longer harm you. Here's the problem with trauma. Trauma doesn't act as a memory. Trauma acts as a recurring reality. So it's called traumatic memory. What is traumatic memory? Traumatic memory is there will be triggers. It may be a word, it may be a sound, it may be a feeling or an emotion, but when it's triggered, I relive the trauma. The same feeling I felt when it happened, the same smells that I smelled when it happened, the same sense of anxiety and helplessness that I felt when it happened. If it made me sweat, I'm sweating for no reason at all, and I don't understand it, and I can't control it because I don't know where it's coming from, how to do it. What happens is it's not in the linear timeline. It's reoccurring as a present reality, even though it's only happened once. Or it may have happened 10 years ago, multiple times, which is complex trauma, but it still happened in the past. But now it's still there. It's reoccurring. It's interfering with relationships. It's interfering with people's ability to engage you. It's interfering with a bunch of different things that is not allowing you to grow. Okay, so that's what happens. So how do we deal with it? We have to integrate it. We have to go back and we have to look at it, and we have to go in and grab hold of it, and we have to integrate it into your timeline, into your linear timeline. You have to take trauma and make it a past event. Why? Because then it becomes a memory. Memories don't harm you except for the power that you give them. They may evoke an emotion, but the longer you get away from a memory, the less emotion it evokes, but not with trauma. So you have to understand that it requires healing. But here's the thing. Not only, as I stated earlier, not only are we talking about what happens when you have a traumatic memory or you have a triggered moment, we're talking about all of the physiological ramifications. Again, a child with 4 ACEs will is at 12 times more of a risk to attempt suicide. A child with 3 ACEs is 4 times more likely to develop ischemic heart disease, type 2 diabetes, a number of other chronic diseases that will have negative implications over the course of their life. And it doesn't mitigate unless you work on it. Now, the number one way to deal with this is prevention. In other words, it's learning to protect children while they're in the home. It's to understand that a child's environment is immensely important. I learned that in studying epigenetics. When I was studying multi-generational trauma and how trauma is transmitted over generations, one of the things that I developed a strong inquisitive desire to know more about was epigenetics. So I dove into epigenetics to the point. My goal in delving into epigenetics was actually to understand trauma. But what I found out is epigenetics has a major role and implication into physiological health as well, even after birth. So not just what's passed down genetically through procreation, but also environmental issues. And this came through the studying of identical twins, how the older they got, the more distinguished or distinct they became and easier to recognize, especially when their lifestyles was explicitly and distinctly different. So in other words, you got 2 identical twins. One goes on, lives a real happy, loving life. Another one marries an abusive person. Over time, that environment of abuse does what? It upregulates disease genes. It upregulates aging genes. It upregulates a lot of the negative things that happen. In other words, let's talk about cancer. And it's funny because I went in to learn about trauma and I learned so much about disease that I was actually invited to Frankfurt, Germany in 2017 to speak at the International Council of Epigenetics and Cancer. And so this is crazy, but we have to understand that these experiences have an impact. So even as an adult, when you're in a negative environment, you are literally upregulating. So people talk about cancer and people don't realize just how difficult it is because cancer seems so common, especially certain types of cancer. You have to understand that there are cancer genes. Everybody has them. But in order to have certain types of cancer, there have to be certain genes that are upregulated at a certain time, and certain genes that are designed to stop cancer from forming have to be downregulated. One of the most powerful influences in the upregulation of cancer genes is negative environment, stress, anxiety, abuse, anger, constant fear. All of these things will start to do what? Upregulate genes that work against you. You can see the aging. You can see the proclivity to get sick. You can see more chronic diseases. And all of this comes from environment. Well, imagine a child who is still developing. They're not only having this genetic process taking place, they're having an emotional and a psychological process taking place at the same time. So when you look at the identical twins, once again, they started out, you couldn't tell them apart. And as they grew up, if they grew up in the same environment. Another way they study kids is 2 identical twins who may have been given away at birth or adopted away at birth, living in 2 distinctly different areas. And you see again how they develop and how important the environment is. So the first way that we deal with reduction of, and here's the crazy thing. I hate to jump so quickly. Here's the thing, it went through my mind, is that simply working to reduce childhood trauma or adverse childhood experiences, we could literally reduce the number of adults suffering from depression by 44%. So what does that tell you? That what you experienced as a child is directly affecting you as an adult. A lot of the depression that people are experiencing can be traced back to their adulthood. So we've got all of these different components playing. And the thing is, very few people are understanding the importance of healing. Now, while prevention is always the best approach, there are too many of us who are in our adult stages or in our pre-adult stages who have already gone through adverse childhood experiences. And the only way that we can mitigate some of the long-term or lifelong implications and ramifications of having experienced those adverse childhood experiences is to mitigate it through proper therapy, mitigate it through direct intervention, mitigate it through directly engaging it. You have to be able to go back, deal with what was there. That's one of the things I do. I go through what I call peeling back layers. I start at where you're at, and over time, I'm just going back and tell me about this. Tell me about this. What happened here? What happened there? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? So when this happened when you were 30, what happened? Well, when you were graduating high school, what happened with that? And eventually we get back to the point. I have gotten to people who hadn't even remembered that they had been molested, gotten through people who were literally terrified of their father, but never knew why until we got to it. I mean, I've got several 60-year-old women who are struggling right now, 60s, with childhood incest. This is a real issue. This isn't me making it up. About almost 20 years ago now, 2003, something like that, I start to notice that almost every female that came to me, Black females specifically, who came to me at some point was sexually violated as a minor. Now, it may not have been rape, but it could have been molestation, fondling, in some instances, the more serious incest and rape. But I was like, what the heck is going on? So I called another male colleague and I asked him, hey, I've got this thing and I need to know, is it a phenomenon or are we missing something? And I told him he said, no, you're not tripping. I'm getting it too. So I started a study. Then I started to look for other studies. Weren't that many existing at the time, but I started to trigger people to start trying to get funding for studies. And what we found out is on the liberal side of things, at least 60% of Black women had been sexually violated before their 18th birthday. On the conservative side, where we sit up and say, okay, that's just a bunch of over adjustments and a bunch of other things. On the conservative side, it's still over 40%. So almost half. Even if you go conservative and say, I'm not counting this, I'm not counting that, that's not really what that was, I don't believe this, that's still almost 50% of Black females. That translates into how they live their adult lives. It explains, in some cases, excessive promiscuity, in some cases, a complete turnoff to sex, in some cases, why no matter how good a mate may be, they find a way to sabotage, why they don't trust, a bunch of different things, why they may even be volatile. All of these things. But here's the knockoff, because people say, well, okay, well, what about? Here's the thing: men are extremely less likely, severely less likely to report being sexually assaulted, even as a child. At any point in their life, I mean, men in their 50s who will not admit it, even when they're confronted with the fact that somebody else knew about it and they're bringing it forth. They won't admit it. So just with the ones that will, still 1 in 6 men were sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday. And not all by men, a lot of them by females. Okay, that's just one side of it. It's so much more to this dynamic than just sexual assault. The feeling of being neglected, the feeling of not being loved, the feeling of being constantly ridiculed and criticized. I talk about in Visionetics, there's a concept in my concept in philosophy of Visionetics, it's about how you see yourself. It's about self-image. Well, self-image is developed and cast based on family. So this thing is, okay, your parents are what I call your primary label givers. in life. You know, the first 5 to 7 years of life, they're going to have the most impact on how you see yourself. They're your label givers. That's why I tell parents, be careful what you say to your kids. Don't tell your kids they're dumb. Don't tell your kids they're stupid. Don't tell them they're going to be just like that stupid dad or that stupid mom. Don't tell them that, they're ugly or that's ugly. What's wrong with you? Any negative thing. Why? Because if they take that label, it will dictate their behavior. Why? Because their self-image is going to dictate how they move in the world. Once you accept that this is who you are, your behavior has to reflect it. That's how you maintain your sanity. So you could take a kid who, for whatever reason, believed their parent or their teacher when their teacher told them that they were dumb, and or they believe the school psychologist when the school psychologist says you have a learning disability, you're intellectually challenged, and so they believe it. And so what will happen is, because I believe that I can't learn, I don't invest in learning. I don't give it a lot of energy. I'm just here. I'm going to show up. I'm going to write some stuff on this paper. I'm going to do what I have to do to show that I'm trying, and I'm just going to get through this the best way I can. I'm going to take this IPO, and I'm going to get over here, and I'm going to try. I mean, EIP. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna get over here and I'm gonna try to get through this or whatever. And what happens with a lot of males is, because they really feel alienated in that process, they have a tendency to drop out at a higher rate, which means that they have an increased risk of becoming incarcerated, because young boys who don't get at least a high school or diploma are 5 times more likely to become incarcerated. And so we got all these different things happening because we're not protecting the children. Well, what happens when, okay, I wasn't protected, so what am I going to do? Sit up and say, well, there goes my life. My life is just screwed up. No. If you're an adult, now it's time to take responsibility for yourself. You could not control the hand you were dealt. You did not control the family environment you were born into. You could not control what someone did to you when you were 5, 11, 12, 15, or 16. But what you can do is say, I'm not going to be bound by that. I refuse to mortgage my future in order to cover what went on in my past. I am going to change some things. I'm going to grow. I'm going to invest in healing. I am going to come out of this better. I am going to be somebody. And what you will find is that you will find in many ways that your passion was hidden in that pain, that you're going to probably come out helping people who went through what you went through in some way or form. You're going to find a way to do something about that. That has never been. I had a lot of aces. Never knew my dad. Never had a maternal son relationship with my mom. I was reared by my great grandparents. My grandmother whooped you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because that's what old folks did. Now she loved on me and she provided me with things that a lot of kids my age didn't have. She gave me my strong desire for reading. She had me reading at 2.5 years old. She made sure I had plenty to read. Brought me, by the age of 5, brought me the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. By the age of 10, I had read it. But she also was very strict. Fortunately, at the age of 8, my grandfather came along and said, from this point on, I've got him. And in that point, the whooping stopped and the teaching started, and it became a much nicer environment, because she once she no longer felt like the disciplinarian, she became the most loving woman you can ever imagine. But when she felt like it was her responsibility to check you, she was checking every chance she got. It was something she took pride in. But that had implications that she could not have known by. Why? Because that's what she grew up having happen to her. And so what am I trying to share with you? I'm trying to share with you, I didn't come from a protected environment in a sense. I had that. I had a bunch of other things that happened in my life. So I had to overcome it. But what happened is, I had made up in my mind before I became an adult that I'm not only going to come out of this, I'm going to help as many people as I possibly can. By the age of 16, I already knew I was going into psychology. I had no idea that it would be where I am now and but I knew I was going to do something. I knew I had to understand why I behaved the way I behaved, why my parents behaved the way they behaved, and how many other children had went through what I went through. Where were they at? What were they doing? And all of that was out there. It was a world to discover. It was something to understand. And when you understand something, you deal with it differently. And what I decided is, I can help people. And I found my passion in it. And I've been able to make a good living doing it. It hasn't always been easy, but I've had some unbelievably great moments in my life. Now, this isn't all I've done. I've been all over the place in business, and it's been a blessing. But understanding the importance of my mentality is what made me a winner in every other area. I tell people all the time that psychology is 80 to 85% of success in business, success in finance, success in relationships. 80 to 85% of your success is psychology. The other part is planning, strategy, effort, energy, commitment, self-discipline. But if you don't have the right psychology, you can have the best plan in the world. You're going to have hell because you don't have the right mentality. So I teach people how to do all that. That's what I do. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you haven't dealt with that childhood, if you haven't dealt with the issues from that have followed you into adulthood, you're not only struggling with things emotionally and mentally, you're also putting yourself at risk for mental for other physiological health. Remember, just three ACEs, unmitigated, we're talking about an increase 3 to 4 times increase in a risk for ischemic heart disease, the number one killer in the world. 4 ACEs, we're talking about that, diabetes, uh, kidney disease, uh, increased suicidal ideations and increased suicide attempts. All of these things are a part of it. So what do? We have to invest in ourselves. We need to seek help. Sitting up saying I'm good doesn't mean you're healed. Sitting up talking hard and saying forget that, that doesn't mean you're healed. It actually means that you are probably calloused over what's hurt to protect yourself. But that's not healing because it's underneath. And the right time, the right person, the right situation will bring it out. So what do? You're going to have to confront it. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to tackle it. You deserve to be whole. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to be in a situation in which you can thrive. And I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care how hard it was. I don't care what someone did or said or how it happened. If you're still breathing, you can have an unbelievable life, but you're going to have to take the reins of your life. You're going to have to take the reins of your sovereignty. You're going to have to make some choices. You're going to have to make some decisions. You are going to have to do some things that only you can do. As I said when I started this, there are a couple of programs that I put in there that I think that are great, and I created them to make me a little bit more accessible. Both of the courses are entitled Healing from Emotional Trauma. One of them is a self-paced course, meaning that you get the course and you work through it yourself, and it's set up for you to get good benefits from it. The other one is what's called a supported course, meaning that you do this with me and I'll walk you through it, and it's a little stronger. It's still not having a full-fledged intervention type process like my other programs. But with those two programs, if you order those programs today, I am going to gift you an additional program to pay it forward, to help someone you love, to give it to someone you care about, because I guarantee you know someone who needs it. That's how prevalent this is. You're talking about 1 in 6 people have at least 4 ACEs in their childhood. 1 in 6. And that goes up in the Black community. It's higher in the Black community. So I guarantee you know somebody. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you. When you purchase, whichever one you purchase, one is working by yourself, the other one is work with me, and we get through the program together. Either way, I'm going to gift you an equal package to give to somebody else. Also, for those of you who want to really go hard in the paint, you want to work with me for 12 weeks up to 52 weeks, any of my packages from bronze to gold that you order will have a free upgrade. So if you get the bronze, you're going to be free. You're going to get a free upgrade to silver, free upgrade to gold, free upgrade to platinum. But you need to just simply email us and talk to my support team about what that package is about and let them know what you want to do, and they will get you an invoice and you can do all that and you get the free upgrade. But if you just want to focus specifically on the trauma, those packages will work to get you started on the healing process. Healing is not an automatic reality when you talk about trauma. Time does not erase it. Okay. On that note, look, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. I hope that you got something to help you. And here's the thing I want to leave you with. As I said before, you're looking at a person who had way more than four. And while I've had some difficulties and some challenges, I've been able to have a very rewarding and fulfilling life. And I'm just getting started at age 54. I want you to be able to do the same thing. So don't think, "Man, it's just so much. I'm just overwhelmed." There is a door that you can walk through and you can start peeling that stuff off. You can start living. And I'm telling you, there's so much a difference in living and existing. On that note, look, I'm out of here. Everybody have an unbelievable day. I hope to work with some of you soon. And on that note, as I always say, I live my life on full so that when I leave this place, I down E. I challenge you to do the same thing. On that note, I'm out of here.